So, Kenny, since we were last on these airwaves, UFC President Dana White has announced that the UFC and Conor McGregor have come to terms on an agreement to fight Floyd Mayweather. Now, the UFC and the money team have not come to terms yet as of us doing this show today, but I believe one side of this equation getting done is big news. UFC and Conor now proceeding, Kenny, as one side of this equation. I really feel like this fight is getting done, and this is a big hurdle that is now in the rearview mirror.
Which is crazy because, how many people out there were saying, there's no way this fight happens. It's impossible. Not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Well, it most likely is going to happen. And now, obviously, 50% of it is done, obviously, with Conor and the UFC on board, waiting on Mayweather now to see exactly what's going on. I'm sure, the main discussion points, as we talked about before, is going to be money, number one, of course, money Mayweather. We're going to be discussing that. And then, the other thing is weight. What weight are they going to fight at? So I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out. I'm sure Mayweather's going to try to get as much as possible. I assume that his promotion is going to be doing the fight, right? They'll be promoting it, so it's going to be his company that's doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not going to be a UFC pay-per-view, even though obviously the promotion is going to get some of that big nut at the end of the day. But yeah, I would imagine it'll be, a Showtime pay-per-view, I would assume.
Oh, that's huge. So I'm sure Mayweather's trying to get more money. I know Dana was getting into discussions about, whether Conor is a bigger star than Pacquiao. I believe he is. I believe he's going to bring in more viewers, so as far as what Mayweather's trying to, ask for, I'm sure Dana's trying to get that out there and trying to maybe get the ridiculous amount that Mayweather wants down a little bit. But, I think this fight's going to happen. I can't wait till it does happen. Conor absolutely deserves that payday, and I'm fired up for him.
If this fight doesn't happen, I am of the belief, not sure if you agree with me or not, but it'll be because ultimately Floyd doesn't want to take the risk. I don't think all of this process is posturing, right? I think ultimately Floyd Mayweather believes that this fight is a good matchup for him, obviously, against a guy who is not long on boxing experience, and he believes that he will realize his biggest payday with this opponent, as opposed to Gennady Golovkin or anybody else that you could throw into that equation. As far as the math is concerned, right, 3 million pay-per-view buys, I think it's a conservative estimate. I think if this thing is promoted well, you can break 4 million pay-per-view buys. Who is not buying this fight? Tell me someone who's not buying this fight at a $99.99 price point. Everybody's buying it. I mean, maybe if it's $100 and not $69.99, you're getting more people together and changing your pay-per-view nightly plan or whatever you're doing. But I'm telling you, Kenny, that's $300 million, right? If you're doing 3 million pay-per-view buys at $99.99 per pay-per-view. And again, I think that they can beat that. So there's plenty of money to go around. And I think if Floyd can get Conor to cut at least to 150, I think in a perfect world, as we've talked about on this show, you try to get Conor to cut down to 147 pounds. I don't know that McGregor's going to go for that. But, Kenny, there's plenty of money to go around. If this thing doesn't happen, I would think it would be because Mayweather doesn't want to take the risk. And in some respects, I wouldn't blame him. There is a risk here. Even though Floyd is about a minus 1,000 favorite, this fight does not come without any professional risk.
I agree. Obviously, it's a fight at the end of the day, and there is risk involved. I honestly think that probably isn't the major hiccup, though. I do think that Mayweather has a very specific number in his mind.
A monetary number?
Yeah, I think he has a very specific number of what he wants to make and what he thinks he can make on the pay-per-view. Kevin Iole had a very interesting article that he wrote saying that he believes the pay-per-view will be a lot less than $99.99. I disagree with him, though. I think Kevin does a great job, but I agree with you that it will most likely be a $99 pay-per-view, and everyone is going to buy it just based on the fascination of the fight alone. You have two stars in the respective sports going at it. I think it's a fascinating fight. Both these guys, what more can you ask for? They're both a promoter's dream. I think the major hiccup isn't on Conor's end. I think it's on Mayweather's end and his propensity to fight very conservatively when he goes out and competes. Obviously, I think that 50-0 number would be very important to Mayweather, but more than anything else, I think it's more about the monetary numbers than it is about the record.
Yeah, I'll buy some of that. And maybe at a price point of $79.99, Kenny, it's more appetizing for people. I will go back and read Kevin Ioli's piece, but I don't know. I just feel like $69.99, $79.99. I think if you're willing to pay that for a fight like this, you're willing to pay $99.99. But do you think that for Conor, I would imagine, Kenny, the weight would really be the big sticking point? I mean, don't you think that he is going to try to avoid cutting down to 147 pounds at all costs before signing this contract?
I mean, I think so, but listen, if there's $100 million or let's say there's $50 million staring you right in your face, I'll make that weight. I'll make that weight tomorrow if I need to, buddy. Yeah, I mean, for Conor, it's a lot of it is motivation, and if he's gonna make that much money, he'll make 145. He might make even 140. Well, listen, I think 140 is too small for him, but I think 145, 147, he can definitely do, especially considering that amount. He'd have over 24 hours to make that weight. That is an insane amount of money, and he will do whatever it takes to get that payday.
Imagine if you were in the sauna cutting for Jose Aldo and Diego Nunes, and you knew if you made the weight, you were guaranteed like 60 million. You might have come in at like 43.5.
Absolutely, just to make a point.
I don't know what Floyd Mayweather's primary motivation is. I don't know how much or to what extent he prioritizes the 50-0. I don't know if in terms of the public that he wants it known that he is making 66 or 70% of this nut against McGregor. I don't know if that means something to him. But I do believe that this is a riskier fight than other people do. And I have been consistent with that belief. And I think just the way Conor understands distance, and because he does pack some pop, and because anything can happen in a fight, right? At the core of my argument, Kenny, it's more about anything can happen in a fight, right? If he gets inside and maybe their heads clash and there's a cut, or he throws a low blow, or somebody throws a punch just after the bell that stuns somebody in a given round. I just think a lot can happen in a fight, and depending on what price you're getting at Conor McGregor, I think there could be some value there. I mean, and I think a lot of people think that's just a really foolish take. I mean, do you just think this is going to be a 36-minute whitewash and not competitive at all?
It definitely has the potential to be. But, to your point, I think that Conor McGregor's movement, his style is very unusual. It's unusual for a lot of mixed martial artists, let alone a boxer who's used to a lot of traditional boxing approaches, and that's a good way to throw off a boxer like Floyd Mayweather, is to have a style and a rhythm that you're just not used to, especially early on. I think that if you're going to catch someone like Floyd Mayweather, it's probably going to be in the first 6 to 9 minutes. We all know how explosive Conor is and how tricky he is early on. I think as the fight settles in, I think Floyd's going to be fine. The longer it goes, Floyd will just kind of slowly pull away from Conor McGregor, as he's done against so many other great boxers. But I think if Conor's going to get it done, it will most likely be early due to an unusual style and rhythm that Floyd isn't used to, and he could catch him. He absolutely could catch him. When you look at them, I've seen both of them in person, up front, up close and personal. Conor's going to be significantly larger, and I think that's where he has the advantage of really roughing him up early and catching him and getting him emotional in all these press conferences and media that they have leading up to this fight.
So in terms of the cardio, and I've been doing a lot of media since the story advanced, and I got to tell you about this actually real quickly, and then we'll get to the cardio. But so yesterday I was interviewed by my broadcasting hero, the great Brent Musburger. Awesome. As some of you probably know, one of this country's play-by-play legends, retired recently, moved to Las Vegas to start VSIN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network. So he hosts a daily show out there, VSIN Live, and his co-host Matt Humans, friend of mine when I was in Vegas, reached out to me to talk about McGregor Mayweather. I wasn't exactly sure if Brent Musburger would be on the show. He's actually hosting the show, and bringing me in to hear him introduce me was surreal. Like, I haven't been that excited, I don't know, since I walked into Delagrati's gym in Somerville, Mass to meet Kenny Florian in 2008. But to hear that legendary voice was really surreal. And he, of course, has a longtime reputation as an avid gambler / degenerate like me. So he brought me on. He said something like, I know you've been known to place a bet or two. I mean, it was just unbelievable and very cool. But obviously this fight is reaching circles that aren't reached by other fights, and it's very exciting. So as to the cardio, Kenny, I've been asked a question, how's Conor going to hold up over 36 minutes? And Floyd is obviously as conditioned as any boxer in the history of the sweet science. 25 minutes in an MMA fight, I think, is more grueling, generally speaking, than a 36-minute boxing match in which there are obvious times to get your breathers and things like that, right? But, I mean, do you think that as Floyd gets stronger in these later rounds, that cardio could potentially become an issue? I've been pretty dismissive of cardio as a factor. Do you think boxing cardio should be of any concern to Conor, or are you not too worried about that?
I mean, it certainly is different. I think it could be a problem for Conor. I think Conor's conditioning is very, very good. I think conditioning is one thing and efficiency is quite another. And I think Mayweather is extremely efficient with what he does. He's not a high volume punch guy. He's extremely efficient with his defense. When he throws, he's most likely going to land. He doesn't throw unless he's in proper position, all that stuff. So I don't see him getting tired. For Conor, over 10 to 12 rounds, it could be difficult doing a completely different sport. Managing that in 3 minutes instead of 5 also makes kind of a difference. So it just being upper body movement, essentially, as far as punches being thrown, there's no kicks or anything like that. But I think MMA is more exhausting than boxing. You're using a lot more energy, a lot more of your body. So I think for boxing, I think Conor comes from that background. I think he should be fine. Conor's a tremendous athlete.
So as to the fight and the betting line, Kenny, there are different prices out there. One I saw today, and this is about as low as I've seen, Floyd Mayweather minus 850 and Conor McGregor at plus 575. So if you do like Conor, you got to shop a price and try to get him at plus 700 or so. And to no one's surprise, Kenny, they're basically only printing tickets on Conor right now because nobody's betting Floyd in that minus 850 range, at least right now. And prevailing wisdom is that maybe some of the sharps would come in with big bets, 80 grand on Floyd to win 10K. But in terms of the betting line, I mean, what would the price have to be on Conor to get you out of bet? Because, obviously, if this is not a UFC fight, I'd have to check my gambling agreement. But I think I am permitted to bet on this thing. And if I am contractually allowed to bet on this fight, and I can get Conor McGregor north of plus 600, little sprinkle, kid. I got to do a little sprinkle. Got to do it.
I mean, I would as well. I think for me, in absolute, I think if he's plus 700, I'd lay down a nice little bet on Conor. Just because, I love his confidence. He has a tremendous belief in himself. He does have power. He does know how to catch people. I think Floyd is at a different level boxing-wise. A lot of people have tried to do the exact same thing against Floyd Mayweather, and all of them have failed. Tremendous boxers. But I would definitely put a bet down. I'd throw some coin down if Conor is 700 or more underdog. I would absolutely do it.
And thank you for humoring us and allowing us to spend a little bit more time on this week. As our listeners know, we haven't really tackled this topic because we were not thinking necessarily that the fight was going to come together. But on Conor, I agree with you, right? Like, this is a big game player. When the lights get bright, he more often than not rises to the occasion. Now, Floyd Mayweather has been that way too, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, Kenny, that all of a sudden, and Conor could come out flat too, but what if Floyd Mayweather comes out flat and for once pays for it? Like, he has been a slow starter in the past. When he fought Shane Mosley, it was 2010. He was 33 years old, got his knee buckled in the second round, and then wiped the canvas with Shane rounds 3 through 12, right? But in this situation, maybe he gets stung early, maybe he doesn't recover. He's not 33. He's 40 years old right now. I just think stranger things have happened. So when I see plus 700, that sounds appetizing to me. All right, final thing, 2 counter fighters, right? So who's more likely to lead the dance? I mean, do you see Conor getting frustrated by Floyd's head movement and, pursuing the issue? I mean, I sort of feel like if one guy forces the issue in front of an antsy crowd that isn't seeing a lot of action, I think McGregor would be more likely to take some risks and step out of his comfort zone to put on an exciting fight.
I agree. I think it's Conor leading the dance. It's going to be Conor going out and stalking right from the opening bell. I think he's going to go right at Floyd Mayweather and try to test him early. I think for Conor, he realizes one thing that everyone should be very aware of. He has absolutely nothing to lose. He's taking on one of the best boxers that we have ever seen. And he has absolutely nothing to lose. He's going to go out and try to take that from Floyd Mayweather and see where the chips may fall. And I tell you what, Conor will take a risk. He is absolutely fearless. That's what's gotten him to where he is business-wise and professionally as a fighter.
And I can't tell you how many times MMA coaches or trainers have said to me the most dangerous combat athlete is the